Looking over some of your roles in the NBA, you had a real strong global focus and a global strategy focus in a number of your roles as you sort of worked your way up the chain at the NBA. What did that role entail, and what were some of the key projects that were work from a global growth and a global strategy point of view?
Yeah, so when I, after Teambo, went to business school and then eventually came back to the league and worked on the strategy team, and we were responsible for both domestic and international strategy. But yes, for a league like the NBA, global growth was a critical part of it. Some of the things that group worked on included launching the Basketball Africa League and some of the earliest investments in and work on what that business plan would look like and what the operational plan would look like. But a lot of the other things, just because 80+% of the NBA's fan base is outside the US, everything that the NBA does is global. So we launched our esports league. We worked on our China strategy. I launched the Junior NBA, which is our youth basketball world championship that had teams from across the world come to Orlando to participate in the championship. We did a number of other things that touched not only domestic, but also our global fan base. My last project in that group was relaunching all of our digital assets. And so investing in the NBA's app and League Pass, which has a predominantly international audience. And so really, while certain things were international specific, a lot of what we did was really just by definition global because of who the fan base is and who was going to use it.
And part of that was, under the tutelage of Adam Silver, who was a big proponent of, snackable content. The quote of, people will watch a little highlight and then they'll be drawn into the larger game. As your role developed from the global to being that social digital content focus, how good was it to have, a lot of the times we have the conversation of trying to get that buy-in and, navigate dodging all those media rights that you have to do, but sort of having that full steam ahead approach that sort of Adam gave you, how did that enable you to really fuel that growth, especially from a content point of view?
Yeah, I think the foundation that the NBA had built over many years was incredible, and that I could lead an organization with such expertise and such experience and such a big audience on social really gave us a lot of room to continue to experiment and take risk and innovate because we were so good at the core of it. We had really meaningful followings. We had really meaningful revenue bases. We obviously had to continue to invest to grow those, and it wasn't easy. But because we were so good at the day-to-day, it allowed us to take some of the bigger swings and think and do some of the more fun and innovative and creative things. And I think that's something, Adam was also very passionate about, was continue to push, continue to be first, continue to identify ways to grow the audience and grow our business via social and digital.
I mean, you mentioned the word innovation, and sometimes that appears in a title and people will talk about it on stage, but there's the idea and then there's the execution. What did innovation look like for you at your time at the NBA?
It looked different in a few different periods. At one point, I was the head of innovation, I think was my title. I can't remember exactly. But the way we defined it was entering new business areas. And how do we take the brand and the assets of the NBA and go do new and exciting things that are valuable to our teams, our owners, our players, all the stakeholders in the ecosystem. And, I think there's sometimes organizations can get trapped in shiny object syndrome of doing something that looks cool or chasing whatever's in the headlines. Like, I think we tried to stay very grounded in what do we think will drive long-term value to the business over time? What do we think will more passionately engage our, billion plus audience? Doesn't mean we didn't make mistakes or we didn't have failures. We were very comfortable that certain things would go wrong, and that was okay because if you're not, you're never gonna innovate. And so that was, I think, from the innovation group's perspective. When I was running the strategy group, was at one point called the innovation group. When I was doing that, how we approached it, and then when I was running the content team, it wasn't dissimilar in that we were constantly trying to find new platforms, new formats, new collaborators to work with, new content concepts where we could innovate that, whether it was our existing partners or our audience or our media partners wanted to work together in ways to ultimately make fans closer to the game. We had a lot of room to experiment. And so one area one example from the content world is youth sports and pre-NBA basketball was just very popular. 15, well, no, 20 years ago, NBA TV broadcast LeBron James versus, I think it was Carmelo Anthony in high school, and it was a big deal. There hadn't been as much engagement from the NBA with youth basketball for many years, but I and my team went out and we got the rights to stream Victor Wembanyama's games when he was not yet in the NBA in the French Pro League because we knew what kind of talent he was going to be. And there was no, I think that was a great example of, we had an idea, we figured out how to make the business case work, and we went and we did it. The year before Victor was in the NBA, he was the 8th most viewed player on the NBA's digital assets as a French professional. And I think it just showed the ability with our scale to drive awareness of someone like him. And same thing happened. We launched a whole platform called NBA Future Starts Now that featured all of the up and coming future superstars of the league. So Cooper Flagg, when he was in high school, was a big focus of the platform. And, just this weekend, I know they broadcast Bryce James's games from a Nike league. And so it's, I think, just an example of something that started as a bullet on a whiteboard and eventually became a real new content platform for the league.
Absolutely. I mean, it's following what the film studio is doing of how do you expand the universe. I mean, these players will eventually be in the NBA universe.
That's right.